Hello everybody and welcome to the United Stand. This is your Manchester United versus Wolves preview. I hope you're all doing well. We're also going to be talking about RANGNICK a little bit time in. Is it wreck it, Ralph, or is it stick a plaster on it, Ralph? We're talking about RANGNICK and what to expect over the next few months of this season and where we might be as we enter the new year, 2022. Happy New Year. But first of all, let's get into it. Wolves. Very, very interesting game against Wolves. 8th in the league. 6 points behind us, but they're a really dangerous team, and we'll be talking about that why in a minute, because I think it's going to be a very different Manchester United approach to how we played against Burnley, but hopefully the same result with 3 points. But first of all, it is a preview. You know what that means. It's Ultimate Fan. We're sponsored by Ultimate Fan on the show on the previews. As you can see, it's up on the screen. What is Ultimate Fan? It's a fancy football game with a twist. Imagine fancy football combined with super cool pack openings. The game is super simple to play. All you've got to do is be over 18 and download the app totally for free using the link in the description. Follow the sign-up system and then you'll be able to start opening packs and filling in your team for this coming week for free. As I said, you've just got to be over 18. There's also Ultimate Fan Plus for you to explore. This section features paid for gold and silver packs where you can receive extra cards, exclusive content and much, much more. And the best thing about this is that each week there are prizes available for the teams that perform the best. This week's prize pool is 8,500. And as you'll see when you're playing the game, you don't need 11 players for this. So with all these bloody COVID outbreaks and injuries and stuff, it's only it's a smaller squad that you need to use. So more chances of doing well. As always, if you want to check out my team, we've posted a pic on the United Stand Twitter page, which is at United Stand MUFC. If you head over there, make sure to drop your screenshots of your team in the comments for us to check out. And if you want to take part in this awesome week's game, then hit the link in the description below and you can start playing Ultimate Fan today. As I said, it's free to play. You've just got to be over 18. Thanks again to Ultimate Fan for supporting the United Stand. And now let's move on with the rest of the show and talk about a pack of Wolves. It's not Crufts. We're not taking the dog for a walk. We're talking about Wolverhampton Wanderers, who play Manchester United at Old Trafford on Monday night. Another evening game for Manchester United, and it needs to be another win. Now, interestingly, before we talk about that team on the left, because I think it picks itself, there is one position that I wouldn't take any notice of. I've put them in, but it doesn't mean I would go with them. So we'll talk about that in a minute, but I just want to talk about Wolves first. So really weird season for Wolves. 8th in the league, 6 points behind us. They lost their first 3 games of the season, just like Arsenal, and yet both are not, Arsenal are ahead of us, which we'll talk about in a moment as well. Wolves are just behind us. They're an interesting team, Wolves. New manager, Bruno, not our Bruno, and they've certainly got similar to Nuno, but I think they play better football than Nuno. I think they're more expansive than they were under Nuno, but very well organised. And one of the things that's interesting, and I'd throw it out the window really, get out the window, is that I thought that Burnley game would be quite tight because Burnley are quite a tight team. But obviously we got 4 goals in that game, so we could have another 4 goals in this. But interestingly with Wolves, they have only conceded 7 goals away from home this season. They are 6th in the league for away form, 8th in normal form, but they're 14th in the league for home form. So their away form is better than their home form. They've only conceded 7 goals. Now, how does that compare? Well, Man City and Chelsea are top. They've conceded 6 goals. Wolves have conceded 7. So they're a very well-organised team that doesn't concede many goals. So you can almost predict it would be a tight game again, which is what we thought Burnley would be. But something to bear in mind with Wolves as well. Also, in their last 5 games, they've only won 1 in their last 5. But they have been hit by injury and they have had issues with COVID. And also in their last 5 games, they have played Chelsea, Liverpool and Man City. So it could be a bit of a false dawn. I expect this to be a very difficult game for Manchester United. And I think it'll be a very telling game. I think that the reason not to run away with the Burnley result is going to be magnified by the Wolves game. Wolves are a very good, technically, tactically aware side. Burnley are a good side. Got a lot of respect for Burnley. I thought they played reasonably well against us, and I don't think Sean Dyche is just a kick it, hoof it up player. I think they do a manager. I think they do play a bit differently, but they're 3rd from bottom. They're not Wolves. Wolves are a better team than Burnley. They're a better drilled team than Burnley. They're better organised. They're a better footballing side, and they will cause us more problems in the sense that if we try and play a 4-2-4 like we did at home to Burnley, we will get beat 3 or 4-0 because Wolves play basically. They have been playing a 3-4-3. Since the injuries that they've sustained, they've gone to 3-5-2 a few times as well. But what you get out of both of those performances is, both of those formations, is that they will pack the midfield. Normally, Neves, Moutinho, Dendoncker. If you play Matic and McTominay or Fred and McTominay against those 3, we will lose the midfield battle and therefore we will probably lose the game. So I think we will play narrow. I think we'll go back to the 4-2-2-2 again. And I think that also I would be hopeful that Varane will play 90 minutes in this game. Eric Bailly off to the AFCON now. RANGNICK was speaking after the game against Burnley that he expects Lindelof to be back because he's been symptom-free. So he's just isolating for 7 days after the positive COVID test. So we should have Lindelof back, but we know he won't drop Maguire. It will be Varane and Maguire, which we will need because, look, Wolves don't score many goals. They're not big scorers, but they're not big conceders. They're another team where you expect a 0-0, a 1-0, a 2-1. You know, you're not going to really... I would be very surprised if we get a 3-2, although I'd rather see more goals than less. They're well organised. They don't score many goals, but Jimenez and probably Podence, although they may play Adama Traore in this game, certainly I think they'll need to try and exploit Maguire's lack of pace and lack of form. But I think Wolves can cause us problems. The thing about Wolves is, even when the previous manager used to struggle against Wolves, I think it was always a case that Wolves they're not very clinical, and I hope that continues on Monday night. They're not a clinical side, which is why they don't score many goals. They're well organised, they're a good footballing side, but they're not particularly clinical. I think we're going to win this game, I do, and I'll put my prediction in quite early. I think we'll win this game, and I think we'll probably win it 2-0. If we score more than that, great, but I think we will win 2-0. I think Wolves will give us a good game. I think Burnley gave us a good game. Newcastle gave us a good game. Norwich gave us a good game. Funnily enough, out of all of RANGNICK's Premier League games, the only one that we've really dominated and was probably the most impressive because they're probably the best team we've played up until Wolves was Palace. You know, we really did dominate them for the first half. But I think that Wolves will give us a game. Remember, they've not played since the 19th, so they've had nearly 2 weeks off. Will that go against them? Will it help them? We'll have to wait and see. But they are, 4 or 5 months into their new manager journey, and I expect to see a well-organised Wolves side that comes and plays expansive and will have learnt from that Burnley game that you can definitely come to Old Trafford still and play expansive football. And I think technically they've probably got better players than us in relation to the way their manager wants them to play. So I don't think it'll be an easy game. And I think it will come down to, hopefully, having better finishers in the team like Cavani and Ronaldo, and maybe with Bruno back, or maybe Greenwood can contribute or something like that. I think it will come down to those margins of us having the better players like it did against Burnley, because I fully expect it to be a very, very different game. And I think that's a good thing as well. As we look at the team on the left, I think that's a good thing. I mean, De Gea will be in goal, of course. Maguire will start with Varane. I'm not going to say anything more on this. He shouldn't be captain of the team. I wouldn't start him. I'd start Lindelof, but the cliques in that club, as we call it, he's the leader of one of them, and he's the leader of the team, and he's the captain of the team, and the club don't seem to want to change that, and RANGNICK doesn't seem to want to do it either. So it is what it is. We just need to hope that we get a Harry Maguire performance at some point similar to the performance of McTominay against Burnley, where they've been bad for a long time, but they do put in a good performance, because I suppose at some point when you keep playing them, eventually they will put in a performance and hopefully find some consistency. Luke Shaw's done enough to hold on. Obviously Varane comes in. Luke Shaw's done enough to keep Telles out for me. I thought he was brilliant against Burnley, and yeah, it's good. Now the Wan-Bissaka one, I've got to be honest, I'm actually going to go with Dalot. He's not English, don't worry, he's Portuguese. It's a mistake on the graphic, well spotted. But I would go with Dalot in this game. I like Wan-Bissaka. I think he looked good, reasonable against Burnley. But did he do enough to force his way into this team? And it just depends what RANGNICK wants to be. Now, if RANGNICK wants to be the manager he wants to be, he'll pick Dalot, because Dalot's got better crossing ability, and we've got Cavani and Ronaldo. If he wants to grind out another result and be defensive and pragmatic, which is what our previous manager did and the manager before that, I think he'll go with Wan-Bissaka because he's better defensively. So it could be Wan-Bissaka, it could be Dalot. I think it will be Dalot, because I think he will want to get Dalot doing what Luke Shaw did against Burnley. But he might be a little bit concerned and go a bit defensive. We'll have to wait and see. Certainly against Burnley, he played to Burnley. He did try to stop Burnley's strengths. If he's going to stop Wolves' strength, which is on the break, he might play Wan-Bissaka, so we'll see about that. Midfield too, I think it'll be Fred and McTominay. Obviously, there's no point talking about Donny. Pogba's not fit, and Matic, I don't think, can play 90 minutes again after playing on Thursday night. And it's a different type of game against Wolves. Their midfield is small. Moutinho, Neves, they're not towers of London. And Podence or Traore, who play up with Martinez, they're not particularly tall either. So I think Fred will come back in for his energy. McTominay will obviously hold his place. So I think it'll be those two. I'll go front two. I think Cavani and Ronaldo will start. He might start Rashford. He might rotate Cavani out the pitch. I mean, Cavani might leave. he might leave. I mean, you know what? He might leave. And if he, I might be doing this video and he's left already. Who knows? But he might bring Rashford in because Cavani's left. He might bring Rashford in to rotate. Rashford offers you something against Wolves, pace. I wouldn't be surprised if he did start him, but personally, I would like to see Cavani starting with Ronaldo. And if Cavani can't play, I'd put Greenwood up front because I'm not going to play Greenwood in the midfield anyway. So I would play Greenwood with Ronaldo or Cavani with Ronaldo. And then that comes to the midfield. And I do think Bruno Fernandes walks straight back into this team. I know some people might disagree with that. I think we'll have to play narrower against Wolves. If we played with wide players, obviously Bruno's not a winger, but our midfield two would get exposed. You've got to tuck your midfielders in. Bruno, therefore, is used to that role. So I would bring Bruno inside. And I think Sancho's probably more suited to tucking in as well. So I think we'll go with the 4-2-2. He might go with the 4-2-3-1, in which case you might see Rashford on the left, Sancho on the right, Bruno and Ronaldo up front on his own. But I wouldn't mix it. I wouldn't move away from a front two in this game, especially with Wolves playing with a back three. With three centre backs, I would definitely go with the front two and tuck Bruno and Sancho in. And I think that is arguably on paper, that's our strongest team at the moment, which is why I think we need to go into the transfer window. But I would argue that that's our strongest team. Obviously, if Cavani can't play, I'd play Greenwood. Midfield is weak, and I'm not picking on Fred and McTominay, but there's not really any rotation in those positions. I don't trust Matic to play 2 games in 4 days. And obviously, we know Maguire's a weakness at the moment. I mean, that team to me, if that is our best team, and all right, Pogba probably comes into it, but if that is our best team, then we are probably, again, 3 brilliant players away from being a title contender, because I still see 3 really massive areas to improve. Holding midfielder, centre-back, and probably, you could argue between the other 2, another forward or another right-back. But I think we're 3 top quality players away from that team being a team that you could say can challenge for a title, which is surprising based on the plan of the previous manager and what the club said we were doing. But that is where we are. Which brings me on to RANGNICK. I mean, he's been here a month now. I still don't think he's got going. And I think we're approaching a pivotal point because January is going to be very busy. I know we're not playing midweek games at the moment, but I'll be very surprised if they don't announce that we're playing Brentford and Brighton at some point in January as well. So we've got a lot of games to come. February, you've got the Champions League kicking in. So it's going to be full on between now and the end of the season. So I actually think it's quite a pivotal time for RANGNICK. There was a lot of feedback from the Burnley game that it was very similar to the previous manager and the previous manager before that, in that we were quite pragmatic. It was quite a patchy game. We didn't really flow. There wasn't a lot of intensity and pressing, which is what RANGNICK's all about. As I said, after the match reaction, RANGNICK said before the game he hinted what he was going to do, and he was playing to Burnley's strengths to try and stop them and use our individuality, which worked. But it was a little bit Moments FC at times, which we don't want to be under RANGNICK, and that's not what he's all about. And I think we're approaching a pivotal point with RANGNICK because he's either going to try and implement what he's all about, or he's going to get the best out of what he's got. Now, if you look at RANGNICK's career, he actually does have a very distinctive way of playing. He wants the forward pass, he wants the high pressing, and he wants the high line. But he's also got a history of going into a club and playing to its strengths. And if he comes into Manchester United with an idea and realises that idea doesn't suit these players, we might see more Burnley performances where he utilises the strengths of the players that he's got. And therefore, if he's utilising the strengths of the players that he's got, we're going to see similarities between the previous manager because he set this team up to his identity, which we didn't like, but RANGNICK might have to adapt to get the best out of this team. Which, you know what? I was reading about it on Thursday night. A lot of people were saying, and people thought he's going to drop McTominay and never play McFred again and not play Maguire and stuff like that. I hoped he might do that because I think they were big problems under the previous manager, but ultimately there was no guarantee he was going to do that. And I think looking at it at the moment, we're probably going to see a lot more of Maguire, McTominay and Fred between now and the end of the season. Now, he's either a genius, and as I said, no agenda. If those players put in performances like McTominay did against Burnley and Fred did against Palace, I mean, Fred's already proven that the consistency is the problem. He was brilliant against Palace and then he was crap against Newcastle and Norwich. Can McTominay keep that consistency going? Can Maguire find a good performance? If we get top 4 and those 3 players are first teamers until May, then you've got to take your hat off to RANGNICK and say that finally we're getting development of players and improvement. If we don't get top 4 and those 3 players play a lot, then we're going to be sat here again, I told you so. So I think it's a very pivotal time for RANGNICK. And I think that the games that we've got to play over the next 3 are really interesting because no Norwich, no Burnley, no Newcastle. We've got Wolves, 8th position, good footballing side. And then we've got Villa twice, who are on the up, who have not embarrassed themselves at Anfield, not embarrassed themselves at home to Man City, and have picked up some really good results recently under Gerrard. And again, a well-organised side. So I think we've got 3 big pivotal games surrounded with a January transfer window, and we really need to win all 3 of those. The FA Cup's very important to us this year. It's probably our best chance of a trophy, and we need 6 points from both those games. Do I think we'll win all 3? I'd be stunned if we do, but I'd be very impressed if we do, and that's the challenge that RANGNICK's got. And in no way am I being negative, I'm just being realistic. I don't expect us to win the next 3 games, because the last 3 games have made me slightly concerned. So this is a pivotal time for RANGNICK. He's an interim coach. You could argue that he's nearly 25% through his reign already, which is quite a sobering statement, isn't it? That he's approaching 25% through his tenure as our manager, unless he's going to get the full-time job, which actually nobody should be saying he is. And I think that's very interesting. I'd be interested to see what you say in the comments. Should RANGNICK be getting the permanent job? Because to me, no, he shouldn't. And this is something that we should be addressing in May. But based on what we've seen so far, no, because, at the moment, I don't see a clear identifiable change. I don't see the hard reset I wanted, and I'm a little bit concerned that the January transfer window is not going to go the way we want to as well, although that's very speculative. We'll have to wait and see about that. But I was talking to somebody about this following on from the Donny van der Beek video yesterday morning. And somebody messaged me who is reliable. I don't know whether I can say their name because I hadn't actually expected to talk about it on the video. And we were talking about Donny van der Beek, and they were saying, look, that information you've got probably sort of fits in with the information I've got. And they were also saying that the problem with Donny is that people in the club just don't rate him, which is very obvious. Very, very obvious. My problem with that statement is I don't trust the people who don't rate Donny van der Beek because I don't think they're very good at their job. Unless it's RANGNICK, who's only been there a very, very short period of time. But the more interesting point for me is that this situation that Manchester United find themselves in is a very uncertain one. And to start making decisions on where we're going to be now would be the same mistake we made 3 years ago with Woodward and the previous manager. But on that Donny thing, it sort of reflects the bigger point, which is that people in the club didn't rate Donny under the previous manager. And under the new manager, people in the club don't rate Donny. So you're telling me that he's just total shit? No. I think Donny's big problem is, and some other players' big problem, and maybe Martial saw this coming, this is not the hard reset. And this is what is concerning me a little bit. When we got rid of the previous manager and his coaches, and we brought in RANGNICK with a very different style of play and a European mentality, and he started bringing in coaches of his own, I was like, this is the hard reset that we need. And a hard reset is basically everything else in the bin, clear it out, sweep it out, burn it, get rid of it, new desk, new everything, I'm in charge. What's becoming a little bit clearer is that this is not a hard reset under RANGNICK. He is becoming what he actually is, an interim coach. And an interim coach is there to put a plaster on. He's not here to Wreck-It Ralph. And that's what I think it's such a pivotal time over this next month. Because if it's Wreck-It Ralph, big players will be leaving and we'll get a couple of signings in. If it's Plaster Ralph, nothing will really happen in January and it'll be much the same. And I think that is why it's not beneficial to your Martials or your Donnies or your Hendersons or your Lingards who needed a reset, a total different mindset, not dragging anything from the past. But we've already got the evidence that we're dragging things from the past. Fletcher's there, Phelan's still there, RANGNICK's having big conversations with the previous manager. It feels like we didn't really want that to end, but we had to do it. But we sort of want to keep it going with you in charge. And that is what's going to be really interesting, because at the moment, we're not getting evidence of the hard reset that we needed. We're getting evidence of a pretend reset, but really we're trying to do it like we did before. We really want to promote people from within and keep it mates rates, and everyone knows each other. We've done it with the CEO, Woodward to Arnold. He was already at the club, so I think it's a pivotal time for United, and I'm hoping we're going to see the big change. But if I'm absolutely honest, my enthusiasm behind the RANGNICK appointment has diluted a little bit. Not that I don't back him. I do, 100% behind him. I think he's way better than what we had before. But I'm still worried about the influence of the past. It feels to me like they've still got their claws into this new regime, and it's not the reset that we desperately, desperately do need. And maybe we'll never get that, because even if RANGNICK leaves in the summer and we bring in another manager, will they be given Fletcher and Phelan and you don't drop this player? I don't know. It'd be very interesting. But I'd love to know what your thoughts are as we move forward into 2022. Because also the flip side to that coin is that Rome wasn't built in a day. And it wasn't built in a day. And therefore, things can take time. There was definitely progression against Burnley. You cannot take anything from the performance in relation to the tactics, because it was very Burnley specific. You play FIFA, you play Football Manager, you watch Burnley, you can actually play a 4-4-2, which is what we did. Because of the way Burnley set up, you can play 4-4-2. You can't play 4-4-2 against Wolves. You will lose the midfield. So what I would take from the Burnley game is obviously individualistic performances from people like McTominay and Shaw and Sancho, which were very positive. I'd also take the fact that we created a lot more chances than we did under the previous manager at Old Trafford. We did create a lot of chances. It's very rare to be 3 goals to the good at home at Old Trafford at half-time. And we moved the ball more intelligently when we did have it, because it was patchy. We didn't dominate. We weren't camped on the edge of their box, chance after chance. It was they attacked us, we attacked them at times. But we attacked efficiently. I thought we were quite clinical in the way that we attacked. But there's a lot of work to do. And I think these 3 games are probably more exciting than having I wouldn't want to play an Arsenal or a Spurs at the moment. I think they are well drilled, well organised, in form. I don't want to play them at the moment. I'm actually happy that we're playing Wolves and Villa next, because they're teams that are not going to be fighting for 4th. They're going to be fighting for 8th. But they're a threat. And if we can dispatch teams like that, then the confidence grows. We've struggled, to be honest. We've struggled with the bottom 3. Newcastle, Norwich and Burnley. We've struggled, especially against Norwich and Newcastle. We're now playing teams that are good teams. They're top half of the table teams. They're ambitious teams. They're well organised teams, and there'll be nowhere to hide. And if we beat Wolves and Villa, we can really say there's progression. So I'm excited for them. I really am. But I do think, as I said, I don't think there's any controversy with that team. Marcus Rashford shouldn't come back into the team. I think Bruno has to come back into the team, because we've got to play more narrow with an attacking midfielder. They've got to support the midfield too. I think Shaw holds on to his place, and I think Dalot is probably the big one. Like Dalot or Wan-Bissaka. Is he worried about Wolves? He'll play Wan-Bissaka. If he wants to be more attacking, he'll play Dalot. And obviously with RANGNICK, I'd expect him to be wanting to be more attacking, so I'd expect him to play Dalot. Anyway, look, a Happy New Year to everybody. I have been wearing a lot of our hoodies recently. Some people have been asking about them. Links in the video description. Make sure you check that out through the link. If you want to get any of our merchandise, you can do that. And thanks everybody very much for watching. 2022 begins. We leave 2021 behind. It was a weird old year, wasn't it? Ups and downs, lost Europa League finals. But we go into 2022 and it's exciting to see what we might achieve. Thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you smash a like. Give us your thoughts below. What do you think about the next few months under RANGNICK? What do you think about the Wolves game? What do you think about the lineup? And remember, Wolves defensively, very good away from home. So it's going to be a challenge. I embrace the challenge. Thanks for watching. Speak to you in a bit. Also, make sure you download Ultimate Fan. Free. Must be over 18. Get your packs. See what players you can put in this weekend's fixtures. And you could win up to £8,500 in the cash prize pool. Terms and conditions in the video description.